My baby.
Hi, friends. Host Derek here with my beloved Rachel. Live streaming on Talking with Famous People. And today I asked the provocative question, ENFJ or ESFP? So, you need some food, kitty? Here you go, Peter. You have food, kitty. What are you meowing about?
I know. I don't know what it is.
Well, here's the thing, Rich Deluxe. You're right. ESFPs and ENFJs are nothing alike. But ESFPs are the most likely type to make a concerted effort to pretend to be another type. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they're not necessarily terrible at it. So, probably that Ashadeep guy, who, from what I understand, had a great deal of antipathy to me prior to hiring me to type in, is most likely an ESFP who was doing a committed performance of INFJ in order to get typed as INFJ by me. Right? That's the most likely scenario because he has indicated that I trigger him a great deal projectively. I mean, he said like the fact that you don't like me or something like that proves my theory about his theory about how as an ESTP I'm somehow triggered by him as an INFJ, right? As an Ashdeep guy. Well, I mean, there are trigger types, but it's not, ENTP is not triggered by INFJ, and ESTP is not triggered by INFJ either. ENTP is triggered by ESFP. So, and ESFP is triggered by ENTP. So it seems rather possible that Ashadeep is an ESFP who was putting on a committed performance as an INFJ. He couldn't fake the TI. And so I sort of, I guess, gave him credit for fourth slot TI, even though it was polar. He may have practiced enough TI kind of questions to be able to fake fourth slot, I guess, for a little while. This is a hypothesis. I don't know. He could be an ENFJ, which is what I typed in. He definitely isn't an INFJ. But there's another person that comes to mind when I think of people who present themselves as ENFJs, who have fooled me for a second or two, but who are actually probably ESFPs. And the other person that comes to mind is Sean. Sean's probably not an ENFJ. He didn't, you got to remember, ENFJs, they're using FE-NI all the time, and they're FE DOMs. Ashadeep came in this morning to comment on the typing session of Laura yesterday. Now, ENFJs are not always going to be nice. They're not always going to be friendly. They're not always going to be perfectly graceful or something like that. But it seems unlikely that that they're going to leave a comment like Ashadeep did, So Ashadeep's comment here on the Laura video was, your interest for other women is getting harder to hide, Eric. Little NI food for thought. That's definitely an FE attack. And then he followed it up as far as I can tell, before anybody else responded to him. He didn't get a reply right away. So he replied to himself saying, you being annoyed by me already proves my little theory of fourth slot, first slot switch, quote unquote, being ESTP, fourth NI will always look at NI DOMs as aggravating. The same way SE fourth looks at SE, I think he means SI fourth looks at, oh no, same way as SE fourth looks at SE DOM as annoying. I'm smarter than you and you hate it. Thank you for the info. Here's one thing I would say is almost certainly the case. If he were an ENFJ, he wouldn't have replied to himself before anybody else replied to him, right? Because that's just such a weak FE mistake. To follow, it's like if you're trying to accomplish something with your comment, you're gonna have to let it sit. Like, you know, if you're fishing for some kind of response, you have to let it sit there until it gets that kind of response. You're not gonna, you know. I might respond to my own comment when I think of something else to say, but probably an ENFJ is not, because they're going to be more aware of the social dynamics of that thing, you know. ESFP might. So, you know, the thing is, if he's an ENFJ, he's not like any other ENFJ I've ever encountered, in the sense that he doesn't have good social skills. He's not effective at FE. Now, I would say this is one area where Sean and this guy are probably markedly different, is that Sean seems to be very actively trying to display good social skills on a lot of occasions, and to not be too much, you know. You might say that one of my problems in life is that I'm too much. Eric, you're just too much, right? Well, that's a problem that action types have. Hi, Andre Z. How's it going? I hear you're made entirely out of cheese. Is it true?
It's gonna be hard to
There
chunks out of yourself.
There have been rumors going around about Andre Z being made out of cheese. Evidence presented has included the fact that mice frequently nibble at your ankles. Very important to eat food. I'm so glad, Rachel, that you made me a bowl of cereal. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
If you don't eat any food, then folks will think you're rude. That's the old saying. And you don't want that to happen to you. No.
Is that true? It's so funny because you probably just made it up, right? But I get to see people at social events being like, she doesn't touch any of her food.
If you don't eat your food, people will think you're rude.
Mm-hmm.
You know the old saying. I've actually never heard that old saying before.
Yeah.
You know, I was brushing my teeth today. It occurred to me there's another market niche that is being left unexploited by modern companies. So, look, we brush our teeth. Why? Because they get dirty. Because our mouth is a dirty part of our body, right? But is it the dirtiest part of our body? No. That would be the anus.
Yes.
Introducing host Eric's professional grade anal paste.
Anal paste.
Is for brushing your anus.
Oh my God.
If you're gonna brush your teeth, and they're not even close to the dirtiest part of your body, then you should really be brushing your anus as well. Now, I would suggest using a different brush.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't use the same brush for both.
You know, that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, people bleach their teeth. They also bleach their buttholes. So
Right.
It's kind of the same cavity.
And people get cavities filled in their teeth. They get their cavity filled in their butthole too. Oh, okay, cool. You know, you can edit that directly, Evelyn. You don't have to leave comments on it. You can just edit it. But thank you. I will look at it. So anyway, the rule is everything that you do to your teeth, you have to do to your anus as well. Well, according to Ashadeep, Kenton Davey, I'm an ESTP. Did you watch Hey Arnold and do a video typing the characters? Rachel and I did something which had one of the Arnold characters in it, didn't we?
I think, remember when we did TV shows, like children's TV shows from like the 90s? We might have mentioned.
I'm going to mention Arnold, that
Yeah.
one, Hey Arnold. You know, the thing is, there are a lot of kids shows from that time period that I am very familiar with because Delilah was the right age, and I was. If you're playing the Rachel Koff drinking game, that's your cue right there. I think that's worth 2 drinks probably. This one is worth 2 drinks. Oh, no, but see, Andre Z, if we use wipes instead of toilet paper, then you're not opening up a new market for me to exploit. Right now, how many people, very, very small percentage of people are brushing their anuses.
Right.
But after my big ad campaign for host Eric's professional grade anal paste, well, for the Rachel drinking game, you take a drink every time she coughs a lot.
Or you can take a.
Or you can take a bar. If you want, if you don't feel like day drinking, congratulations, you're a normal person. You're not a drunk. Good for you. So if you don't feel like day drinking, then I'd suggest you join us in it's 1 bong rip per 1 drink, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and play the Rachel bong rip game myself. And since I said that was worth 2 drinks, well then it's gonna be worth 2 bong rips, right?
Yeah.
So I would get out some bong rips here. You think that rectum brushing will take off only if I replace the Olympics with the Pain Olympics as the quintessential sporting event? The Pain Olympics? That sounds terrible. It would just be endless Dave Matthews Band performing.
That's so funny.
The reason I thought about Dave Matthews Band again is because somebody this morning left a very angry comment on my Dave Matthews Band worst musician in history video or something.
Oh.
I forget what the video is called, but it's my video where I just shit on Dave Matthews a great deal. And somebody was very angry at that. Let me tell you, there were exclamation points. There were all caps words.
Were they talking about how he's such an intelligent artist?
Well, they began by negating something I never claimed, which is Dave Matthews is not trendy, okay? I said, wait, what? Did I say he was trendy?
No.
Use anal deodorant after the paste for 24 hours protection. That's a good idea, Andre Z. Because you never know when you're going to need abruptly to take it up the ass. And you might not have time to freshen up first. Who are some musicians, bands that influence me? That's a excellent question. I really like that question. Thank you for asking me that question. When I was growing up as a little kid, I think it's under the name of Prince, Prince. Not the symbol representing the artist formerly known as Prince. I saw Prince live at the Forum before he died. So bands and stuff that influenced me. When I was a little kid, the first record that I remember listening to over and over and over again was the Winnie the Pooh soundtrack, and really enjoying the Tigger song. The wonderful thing about Tigger, the Tigger's a wonderful thing. The web made of rubber, the rhymes are made of strings. The bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful, wonderful thing about Tigger is I'm the only one. I'm the only one. That's the first song I remember loving. I remember listening to it as a little kid in my bedroom, which no longer exists after the remodel of this house. It's now a hallway, but where my old bedroom used to be. But I remember as a little kid, maybe 3 years old, listening to that record over and over again in my room and singing along with it.
That's so cute.
And Tigger is probably an ESFP, I think, Fancy Deluxe, yes. But you see, ESFPs in cartoons are great. I love ESFPs in cartoons.
True.
Naruto is one of my favorite guys. I'm also a huge fan of the red-haired kid in Haikyuu, and also Sawamura from Ace of the Diamonds. These are all ESFPs who are beloved friends of mine. The problem is none of them are actually real people, because real ESFPs aren't contextualized to be like that, you know? The reason Naruto is such a great guy is because he's being asked to do stuff all the time that ESFPs do, and that ESFPs can do well. The reason the Sawamura guy is so cool is because he's a left-handed pitcher, so that gives him an advantage. But he doesn't have as much heat as the ace. You know, he doesn't have all the talent as the most talented guy. But he's got heart, you know? He's got belief. Believe it. You know what, Fancy Deluxe? I'm going to go ahead and make the following rather bold but easily defensible claim. There are zero intellectual ESFPs. There are many ESFPs who do intellect theater, but there are no actually intellectual ESFPs in the world. That's my bold claim. In the entire world, there's not a single genuinely intellectual ESFP. Mm-hmm.
I probably agree with you, though.
I can stand behind it. Cognitive functions tell me that it's more or less impossible. No, not the previous typing session. I was reminded of this guy, called himself Prince, but his channel name is Ashadeep TV. I mean, I don't think you can force a rock to be a duck. No matter how hard you force it. You can't squeeze blood from a turnip. So, I mean, the notion here, KD, is that, oh, yeah, he didn't hire me, huh? Yeah, he coaxed me. I guess he didn't hire me. That's my bad. Yeah. He's probably an ESFP. What's my defense for that statement? They are constitutionally and or attentionally counterindicative of meaning-based modalities. So since real intellectualism requires one to deal with not high-resolution stuff, experiential data, but low-resolution stuff, symbolic data, it's more or less impossible for an ESFP to be an intellectual. Well, see, that's I didn't say meme-based. I didn't say meme-based modalities. I don't remember what I said, but I didn't say that. Meaning-based modalities versus experience-based. So, you know, let's say that I go, who cares what I said? I'm just talking out my ass. It doesn't matter that I said that to you. What matters is what I do, not what I say. What matters what I Doesn't matter what I say, only what I do. Never mean to do bad things to you. That's an ESFP statement. It doesn't matter what I say, only what I do. I never mean to do bad things to you. That's an ESFP statement.
That is really so true.
It's a great song, though.
It really is a great song.
Am I out of my head? Am I out of my mind? How could I have ever been so blind? I agree with you, John, from America. Words have the power to speak life and death into somebody. You should leave off that last word in that sentence. You know, it's true.
It is so true.
Absolutely true. Words have the power to speak life and death into someone. Except it has the power to speak life and death into people who care about words.
That's what I was
Remember,
just gonna say.
my words are powerless against ESFPs. I can't convince them of anything. You know what that means? Time for a bong rip. Time for a bong rip. If you're playing the Rachel bong rip game, then please join me because Rachel just coughed 1 bong rip's worth of coughing. Is it on Crunchyroll, Sky here? Major? Damn, my bong needs to be plunged. So
it was really true for them.
These chopsticks fit perfectly for plunging this bone. Isn't that convenient?
It is.
Well, weed's not illegal in California. Oh, my bad, Kenton. I stand corrected. I think popularity doesn't affect the Crunchyroll dilemma. It's all about licensing rights. Shit gets complicated. Oh. It's unfortunate. Well, I had somebody suggest to me, I think it was Diamond, suggested an anime called Wolf's something, Wolf's Lair maybe, or Wolf's Milk or something like that.
Interesting.
Anybody know what I'm talking about? So, okay, regardless, the thing about when you say poor ESFPs, remember, here we are in this environment which is made entirely of words. So it doesn't matter if I I'm continually farting, just silently, but just a steady stream of gas. Wolf's rain, there you go. Steady stream of gas out my butt. It won't impact any of you because you're not actually in the same room with me. But it feels like we're in the same room in the sense that we can communicate directly with each other. I can't see any of you, but I can hear your words, quote unquote, by reading them from the chat. So it's this kind of reality in which we've excised all the experiential elements from the reality. Of course, an ESFP is going to struggle in that environment. And yet the modern world, especially with COVID in the mix, is mostly about the external metaphysical field. Right now with COVID anyway, especially, it's like, it's mostly about that. But even without COVID, it's mostly about that. It's mostly about people communicating with each other, because ultimately in the contemporary universe that we live in, communication has entirely trumped physicality as the means to accomplish things. Physicality is always subsumed by the communicative. It's like, the people who do physicalities always work for somebody else performing their idea project for them. Well, the linguistic aspect of flatulence is truly profound because I have on many occasions fit a loud butt bark perfectly into a sentence. You know, like I'll be talking about, which is exactly why I always say about that person, you know, when that happens, it's pretty great. It's one of humankind's classic, most beloved, and long time existing jokes. Can you tell me why you consider videos time objects? Is it because their purpose is to carry meaning? In the end, they arise due to physical processes, which is why I ask. I call them time objects because they're not subject to the law of non-contradiction, whereas physical objects are. The law of non-contradiction says something cannot both be and not be in the same time, place, and context. A YouTube video is exactly an example of something that violates that law of non-contradiction. It both is and is not in multiple places, times, and contexts. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're all watching a premiere of a video together that I uploaded. Well, it's not like we even metaphysically we're in the same space. You know, it's like we're each in our own space, rendering independently an equal reality, but that's very different than actually sharing the same reality. So if we're in the same room and I say, oh, here's that paper I wanted you guys, I'm talking about, and I put it on the table, only one of you can grab it. But if I put a link to a paper, everybody can click it and render it independently in their own reality. That's the metaphysical plane, and that's what it means to say something's a time object. Another way to understand it as a time object, right? The other quality of a time object, as opposed to a, sorry guys, bong rip time.
I'm just gonna get you real high.
I gotta pause thinking of the bong rip because once again, Rachel is taking a bong rip and empowered us to smoke our own weed.
Yes.
Because she's an empowering woman.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm so good at smoking weed. Kent and Davey, you definitely have to be an NTP. You're demanding reparations for bong rips. Okay, so the other thing about the time object is that it's defined by its identity rather than by its attributes. So I can render something into a time object simply by indicating it, by adding some sort of article. So if I'm talking about a rock in general, then it's not linking to anything in the physical world. It's linking to simply the concept of a rock. If I'm pointing to a rock and say that rock, then all of a sudden that rock has an identity. Namely, it's the rock I'm indicating. If you have some way of referencing the thing that I'm indicating, namely by looking at it too, then we're dealing with now a space object because it's, we're dealing with now not just a space object, but a time object because it's been rendered into one by our naming it such. That is to say, a time object is an object that can be dealt with on a low resolution plane as a symbolic representational kind of thing rather than the actual thing. Now, whether or not the term time object is a good term for it, or if it's a misleading term for it, that's another question. It may be not the best term for it, but the other factor is there seems to be a durational quality to metaphysical things and a non-durational quality to physical things. Now, You might say a still image. Well, that's not durational. But I think what it drives home then is the attentional processes of making meaning require duration, whereas the attentional processes of experiencing physicalities don't. Like if I tell you that, if I tell you that this rock is 5 pounds, I'm giving you a time object that is referencing an attribute that's non-durational. Oh, that's a great example, Rain. Thank you for saying that. If you told me you just came up with that right now, I would be like, wow, that's a great example, Rain. I'm going to use that from now on. That's a good example. Where's Waldo is a perfect example of a image that has a duration. And shows how the duration is created by our attention to meaning. In that instance, the duration of the Where's Waldo picture is created by our attention to the meaning that his location is distinct from somebody else's location, and I have to find him, you know? And you were absolute shit at Waldo's kid. I hated it. Now, I just want to say, if you're playing the Rachel coughing bong rip game, you shouldn't also play the Eric crotch shot game, because then you just get too fucked up. Play one or the other. Because, you know, I'm going to stand up at some point, and I am wearing my boxers currently, so you're probably going to get another Eric crotch shot, in which case, if you want the sound of flatulence bong rip game, that's a third game you can play. Again, I don't recommend playing 2 games concurrently.
Yeah.
That's just too much action for any individual. So yeah, I think ESFPs can be pretty good at faking being the thing they want to be.
They really can.
You know, especially if they study up somewhat on you and how you apparently draw conclusions. So ESFPs are likely to do that, but they can never end up out intuiting me, you know? They might fake me out, though, successfully into calling him an ENFJ. Like, I'm not completely immune to like when it's obvious somebody really wants to be a meow and really doesn't want to be a meow. I'm not totally immune to being influenced by their obvious preference. You know, sometimes after a session I go, did I let that influence me? And I think I kind of did, maybe. But I try to be immune to that. I can usually read it, like if somebody wants to not be a meow or wants to be a meow. I mean, like nobody comes in going, ISTJ. Kenton Davey points out, come on, Eric, you should be more like these superpowers. He's objective. So, I'm going to do that thing that I do periodically, which is play the song I'm currently working on, or my current mix of it, which may be the final mix of it, but it may not be. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to play it on the TV here, which means you're going to hear it through the microphone, which means you're not going to hear a very high quality version of it. But I'm going to do it anyway because I'm Eric, and it's only a minute and a half long.
人の死因にもいろいろある。They were once human too, free of fire like me and you. Then a light within ignites. hell's on top, if heaven's the bottom, return to the flame. If hell's on top, if heaven's the bottom, return to the flame. If hell's on top, if heaven's the bottom, return to the flame. If hell's on top, if heaven's the bottom, return to the flame.
Latum. That's what you have to say when you put an infernal to rest. Get Real Paid by Beck. I'm not familiar with that song. It reminds KD of You Spin Me Right Round, Baby, Right Round. And then Kenton Davey also says, Hear the Prince influence. Okay, well, I mean, if it evokes a lot of different things, and that's fine. I don't worry about sounding like other stuff or not sounding like other stuff or whatever. You know, I've got so many songs that I made that it's just, I don't worry about being able to be successfully boxed, you know? Thank you, Sean Ryan Barron. And I wanted to go back to your thing and ask you which games should be included on your wheel of gaming. I did note the comment and planned to comment back upon it, but forgot. Thank you, Rachel.
Sorry.
Where is Sean Ryan Barron's previous comment? Did he remove it? I guess he got too enamored with my concept of anal. Oh no, here it is. You should pick one game at the beginning of each live stream with the spinner. I want to know what games should be included on the wheel of games.
Yeah, we could have maybe 5 going.
We could have some games, it's true, but I don't know what games we should have.
So it's the Rachel coughing game.
Oh, those games. Oh, I see. Rachel cough, crotch, flatulence. Oh, I see. You're referring to those games. I just thought it was an unrelated thing. You were just saying we should have a wheel of games, and like today we're playing Monopoly or whatever. You know? I didn't make the connection.
Yeah, that's easy enough to do.
When I talk to NI types, says Rain, it feels like they're observing the conversation, i.e. the subtext concept you mentioned about INFJs. Is it possible this isn't only a high FE thing? It's an NI thing because that's what a knowledge function is. Knowledge functions are, well, NI especially is observational. SI, I would say, is more associative than it is observational. But yeah, it's not really an FE thing. It's an NI thing. To be a receiving type of low resolution, universal / symbolic meaning stuff is to be open to receiving information. So INFJs are going to enjoy consuming media a lot. Because that fits right into their native state of being where they are not acting, not deliberating, not interfacing, but observing, being an agent waiting to receive information. But of course, it's always paired with either the 2 or the 3 functionally. You can't manifest without one of those 2. So it's like saying, to say that you could just be NI is to say that you could have only height. Well, you can't only have height. You have to also have depth and weight and stuff, you know? So the point is NI will be paired with either an interface function, in which case that observational knowledge and openness to knowing what is will be directed towards the relevant kind of dynamic system. So if NI is paired with FE, then it's directed towards people, their motivations, how they feel, how words make them feel, what things mean, etc. regarding people. And if it's paired with TE, then it's regarding dynamic physical systems and or systems that treat people as though they were cogs in a system, such as work protocols, stuff like that. So that's the thing. It's like if you're knowing, you're going to either be knowing about one of those interfaces, or you're going to be knowing through your third slot function. So the other possibility is that you go fully internal if you're an NI-DOM, and you go NI-TI or NI-FI. Just as I can go NE-FE and spend my time making jokes or making up stories. I really enjoyed my bedtime story last night about Peg and Greg. I don't know if you caught it, but it's one of my favorite ones. That's NE-FE. That's all that's going on there, really. I mean, well, there's TI implicit in the jokes. Like my FE jokes have a lot to do with TI funny situations, I guess. But that's an instance of showing me using extroverted intuition more or less with extroverted feeling. Another example of using extroverted intuition with extroverted feeling is how many different synonyms for or can you make up a poem? I'm sorry, with extroverted feeling, can you make up a little poem using the words blue, lighter, and cheese? And then I have to make up a poem that in some way is amusing or surprising so that I delight my audience, you know? But if I'm being asked instead to come up with how many synonyms for a given word, then I'm having to use more TI, but still some FE frame. Like it's like, well, does this actually count as a synonym? Or will this present as a synonym to everyone? Are two different questions, you know? Well, the same thing with NI. If it matches up with TI, then the INFJ or INFJ will be maximally introverted and consequently maximally, I guess, judgy. For ENTP, when I go with my third slot, I'm maximally interfacey, which is to say, I'm mostly concerned about how you react to it, whether it makes you laugh or something. I mean, the reality is, if it makes me laugh, it's fine. I don't care. I have a great time telling those stories and laughing at myself. So in that sense, it's an FI value. But it doesn't matter if the story has inconsistencies or whatever, right? It's like, I don't care. It's not meant to be a TI treatise on something. So when NI-TI goes together, they're maximally judgy. When NI-FI goes together, they're maximally judgy. But NI-FI maximally judgy is going to be very determinate about its own boundaries, probably, and also very determinate about what matters and what doesn't matter to the person. Bitch, don't infer my time zone is a great t-shirt. I would love to wear that t-shirt. Bitch, don't infer my time zone.
Don't infer my time zone.
Gen Xio, I bet it does. TI, SE, and I must feel like a truth superpower. I wouldn't want to try to slip some illogical bullshit past an ISTP. That's like you're asking for trouble. If you're trying to slip some illogical bullshit past an ISTP, it's not gonna work.
You get a really angry looking face. Like a stern look. Maybe you're like, oh damn, I did something wrong.
Well, I mean, that's why ENTP is supervisor or ISTP, because we're good enough at the TI that you're not going to catch us very often. And we give you plenty of things to determine the truth about, So in that regard, it's, the supervisorial relationship in an ideal context, which is basically entirely at the supervisee's discretion, can be quite a beneficial relationship. But the problem is we rarely get that relationship. Like, I don't have an INFP in my life whose supervision I can access at my discretion. I don't have one at all really in my life. But that's the important part, is that if the supervisor-supervisee relationship is going to be rewarding for both parties or either party, it's going to have to be entirely the supervisee's discretion. But yeah, I don't really have any INFPs in my life. But the other thing is, I'm not actually in need of a lot of guidance at this point in my life, really. I used to be more. Nigwabatho Mafu says, how is any new or novel if there's nothing new under the sun? Right, well, that's the dance between extroverted intuition and introverted intuition. You say there's nothing new under the sun, and there's nothing new about that statement, right? So it is the case that people before have expressed the notion that there is nothing new under the sun. However, it's not the case that historically that notion has been expressed as little but the familiar persists beyond our imagination. There's a different way of saying it. It's a worse way, but it's still new. Beholder, yes, the beholder is a god in my book called Gospel of the Pantheon. And the beholder is the god. She sits in a giant stone. She lives in a giant stone eye that is her temple. And all the artists of the land send her their artworks, and she gives a formal aesthetics status to it. Like, this is brilliant, this is shitty. So it's like, that way everyone knows how shitty the Dave Matthews Band is. And when people go, well, beauty's just in the eye of the beholder, you go, well, that's her job. That's what she does. She beholds art and she says if it's shitty or not. That's the situation in my novel that I wrote called Gospel of the Pantheon. The goddess is the beholder, and she was born a regular person who had a unique deficit, namely she could never create anything herself. It had any aesthetics to it. Even like if she wrote a grocery list out, there'd be nothing that stood out about it aesthetically at all. It would just be totally non-aesthetic. So nothing she ever did, she couldn't sing a note of music. She couldn't write a lick of poetry. She couldn't do any artistic thing at all.
So she could even create her own meal.
Well, she might be able to make herself food, but it would be food that would be so functional and utilitarian that it would have no aesthetics to it at all. Neither good nor bad. It would just not validate on that metric.
Military ration.
Yeah, just MREs, And so her parents, though, were both like arty types, like NFPs, and so they were kind of sad that their child didn't seem to have anything, didn't like to do any kind of art. But then when she turned 13, one day her mother asked her, just out of curiosity, what do you think of mommy's new painting? And all of a sudden, it's like her eyes glaze over and she says, the composition is decent, but you need to I gave this incredibly detailed and precise critique of it that was exactly right. And that's when they realized that she had this superpower of being precisely correct about aesthetics all the time. And then there was one night, this huge storm, and all these lightning things, they hit the hill, and they made the hill fall away, and what was left was this giant granite eye, and a set of stone stairs comes down from it. And she leaves her parents and says, I'm not leaving for good. I'm going to take this glass of milk that I've been drinking with me so that I have a reason to come back next Saturday and bring the glass back, and I'll see you every week for dinner. I'm just going to go live in that eye over there. And she did, and every week they had dinner together until her parents died many years later. Anyway, the eye of the beholder is where all of the art goes to be judged. And at first, when she first took on the job, you'd send your shit out to be judged by her. It would take like a year and a half before you get it back. But nowadays, they've streamlined it. They've got a lot of clerical staff in the temple, so it doesn't take as long. David Sanderson says, you have to take the vaccine. There are no other options. The vaccine is the best thing on the market. Okay. Well, I don't know about the vaccine. See, this is the thing. I don't really have an opinion on it.
I'm waiting to see Kamala Harris's results and how it affects her.
I mean, the thing is, I'm not really worried about the vaccine because I'm not really worried about COVID. After all, it's like, I could be, let's say they came out with an AIDS vaccine. I wouldn't take it. No matter how safe and proven and perfect it was, I wouldn't take it because I don't need to take an AIDS vaccine because I'm not having sexual intercourse with somebody who has AIDS. And I'm not going to have sexual intercourse with anybody but Rachel, so there would be no reason for me to take an AIDS vaccine. Now, let me come up with a better analogy, though. Let's say they came up with a flu vaccine, which they do have. And I knew that the flu had, a 1% chance or so or less of killing me. Well, I wouldn't take the flu vaccine. Well, why not? Because I know that there's a lot of factors involved in this besides just a percentage chance. The probability is a poor way of understanding this. That me as a healthy adult have actually a very low chance of dying of the flu. Very, very low. And the same thing is true of COVID. I'm certainly not going to die of COVID. And if I do, then that's what this was meant to happen. I'm not going to worry about every possible way that I could die and take measures to prevent it. There's a fallacy, or I guess a cognitive bias that's referred to, what's it called? I don't remember the name of it, but basically it's anytime you inform people that a risk exists, they will irrationally assume they know enough to take action. But of course, knowing that a risk exists is not sufficient information to take any action. It's irrational. So I don't take a flu shot. I've never had a flu shot. C.S. Joseph is an ESTP? I don't think so. I don't think he's an ESTP. I mean, he's definitely not an ESTP. His TI is not good enough to be an ESTP. His TI is either ignoring or polar. He's either an ESTJ or he's probably an ESTJ. I guess he could be an ESFP. The thing I see at Joseph is we know his NI and his TI are both in places that are either countervalued or very non-active. So we're looking at 4-7 probably for the TI and NI in CS Joseph. And we can probably think that the NE, we're looking at either 6 or 3 because it's there, but it's bad. I mean, it's not satisfying, It doesn't, it's only satisfying to him. His extroverted intuition is only satisfying to him. What people go to CS Joseph for is the extroverted thinking. The tendency he has to say, guys, we don't need to worry about why, just how. That's satisfying for people who are TI countervaluing and or TI blind and or or NI. I don't want to play Among Us today, David Sanderson. Sorry. I don't really like that game very much. I mean, it's not bad. As a game, it's not bad. It's just I don't really like playing video games very much. Who's Ashadeep again? Ashadeep is this guy named Prince. Ignoring is 5th slot, but ignoring is kind of a misleading name for it. What's the proximity chat? Are TE and dichotomous thinking related? No, well, I would say TE and ordinal thinking are related. So whereas all right, so TI is, I guess you'd say, dichotomous thinking, or it's about the scope of sets, what things definitionally lie within or without sets, and the relationship between sets, and in particular, the vector of conditionality, that things predicate on other things. So that's TI thinking. TE thinking converts dynamic physical systems, dynamic realities, into ordinalities. Namely, how am I going to get from this empty space here in space to a house? Is dealing with a dynamic physical reality in real time. But you can't approach it that way. You need to have a plan. You need to have a set of ordinals. So whereas TI breaks things down into conditional reasoning, which is things being predicated on other things, which is different than ordinalities. Ordinalities is about order of operations. Waria King says, you are an ESTP. C.S. Joseph is right about you. Oh. Well, I'm convinced. Everybody, let's pack it in. I'm convinced. Waria King has made the argument that no one else has been able to make before to convince me and everybody here that, in fact, I am an ESTP.
Wow. I've been living with an ESTP for this long and I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Waria King, he explains it clearly here. He explains exactly why. He says, you are an ESTP. C.S. Joseph is right about you.
Oh, well then,
He is the king of typology, after all.
Yeah.
The crowd went silent out of convincement. Exactly. Here's the thing, Waria King. If I'm an ESTP, what do you have to do to qualify as an ENTP? How much ideational splatter does a man have to produce before he qualifies as an extroverted intuitor? Because if I'm not an ENTP, and if ENTPs are have anything to do with coming up with ideas or being inventive or creative or anything, which everybody seems to agree, then how in the world could anybody qualify as an ENTP if I don't? When I've got countless hours of me rambling about random topics, responding to random people about random things, discussing ideas ranging from nuclear physics to Nicki Minaj.
It's true.
I create shit tons of documents. My Google Docs thing has hundreds of partially finished documents about endless quantities of different things. They say ENTPs are the debater type. I'm a professional debate coach. I was a debater in high school. I've been accused of being too debatey by people for as long as I can remember. Here's another funny thing to note. Waria King. C.S. Joseph's online test typed me as an ENTP rogue.
Yep. It did.
Okay, Cloud. Waria King's Cloud. Whenever you talk on subjects and use language that I'm not familiar with, I look those things up, especially the words you use, trying to come up with the meaning of what you're saying. Is TEFI responsible for everything we call evil? No. There is plenty of evil that's caused by TIFE as well. But the thing is, TIFE causes evil. I mean, but look, Larry King says, I'm an any dom, you don't have the concept of any. That's sort of like, I mean, it could be Prince. It could be Ashadeep, you know. I don't know. I'm an ENTP rogue instead of a mage. Yeah, right, exactly. I guess there's ENTP rogue, and then there's ENTP non-rogue.
Hey, what does an ENTP rogue mean?
I don't know. Well, that's true, David Sanderson. The thing is, my NI doesn't have to know who it is. My NI merely has to know whether this person is willing to be honest, deal with me honestly. And that person was clearly not willing to deal with me honestly. If they make a claim that's clearly meant to be provocative, like this person who begins with two of the least extrovertedly intuitive sentences I've ever read in my life. You are an ESTP. C.S. Joseph is right about you. What extroverted intuitor would take their opportunity to introduce themselves to the chat with such banality? None. Nobody. He follows that up with, I am an NEDOM. You don't have the concept of any. What NEDOM would limit themselves to such banality? I mean, the thing is, Rain, that's actually something I like. I'd say I like about it. Well, that's what you were saying, Dulles, 1969, and I gave a nod to that in the video. That's possible. He could just be trying to agitate. The thing is, it doesn't really matter. If he's just trying to agitate, he successfully agitated me enough to make a short video on him. If he's just trying to agitate, he's surprisingly. I will get back to that, Freddie Forgiato. Thank you for reminding me. If he's just trying to agitate, he's surprisingly committed to it on a long-term level, because he made his big attempt at agitating me after I typed him. He made some videos that were designed to get my attention, and I didn't respond at all. Somebody mentioned it to me, and I thought about checking it out, but I was just like, I don't give a fuck, whatever. It just so happened the comment this morning successfully agitated me because he accused me of being interested in other women. And that I found to be an attack on my character. I am in a committed relationship. I am not looking at other chicks. I'm not considering, how attractive they are or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm just being a friendly person. That's not me. There's no fair person would say, watching that typing session of Laura, that I was being somehow flirty or inappropriate with her. It's a totally unfair accusation, and it's attacking my FI. And so in that regard, he successfully agitated me. Eric did flirt with you, TinyMan66. Have I ever talked to you before? I mean, I guess it's true that I will say occasionally mildly flirty things. I would say that when Running Fox said the other day that she was outie, and I made some sort of reference to I pretended to misinterpret that as meaning she was telling us that she had an outie belly button. That was kind of a flirty comment, I guess. It was a little flirty, I guess. But that's about the full extent of my flirtiness. I'm not much more flirty than that. Fenty Deluxe, yeah. Naturally, I flirt with Fenty Deluxe constantly. He's the kind of ENFP that makes me want to take up anal brushing.
How we got back to this?
It would bring me back to host Eric's professional grade anal paste. Well, the problem with me flirting men like gods wouldn't be a Me Too thing. It would be a I'm in a relationship thing.
I want to be the person who decides if it's inappropriate or not.
Right, absolutely. You should be.
Because like,
If she thinks I say something or am too flirty with somebody or am flirty with somebody in a way that bothers her in some way, I would ask her to let me know immediately, because I don't want to be doing that. And there may be a behavior that she perceives that way that I didn't understand she's going to perceive that way, in which case, I guess I need to stop that behavior. But regardless,
that hasn't been the case.
That hasn't been the case. Right.
I want everyone to know that, because you're a great partner. I love you so much, and like one of the reasons why it's easy is because like I feel like you have this like mutual respect for me.
And we're on the same page about relationships.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I have very clear positions on relationships because I can't rely on my feelings to help me determine how to act, So I have my rules about how one acts in a relationship.
It works.
And I obey those rules.
It works.
Yeah, it works. So, of course, Fenty Deluxe being the exception.
Yes.
So anyway, back to Faraday Forgiato's thing. What sort of evil is TIFE responsible for? I mean, I think it's responsible for the need for vengeance, fundamentally. Now, TI is going to position it as justice, and so is FE. But FI is ultimately going to be FI is going to be the thing that says, why don't we forgive? Why don't you forgive Joe? Well, why should we forgive Joe? Because I love Joe and I want him to be forgiven. Is a kind of goodness that is the TIFE typically will deny. If one ascribes morality to being Christ-like, TI is not very Christ-like. TI is more old school God, 10 Commandments kind of God. Don't violate people's negative rights. FI is more New Testament, Jesus kind of God, like wash other people's feet. Well, I don't want to wash other people's feet for a couple of reasons. One, you wash my feet, motherfucker. and two, I got my own feet to wash. Yeah. Yes, that's true. I'm not saying FI doesn't. FI is trickier than TI. TI ultimately can't sustain evil if allowed indefinite amount of time. So no one's going to win the argument on TI grounds that we should be evil, provided the argument is allowed to play out to its full conclusion and everyone agrees with the correct conclusion, which never happens. So TI is often used for evil purposes. If I'm a embittered ex-wife who's trying to really get my husband bad, and I hire a good attorney, he's going to use his TI to accomplish a bad outcome potentially if it's not deserved, Tiny Man 66, can we all agree that evil is not retarded social games? It's animal cruelty and America not helping poor countries. Those are totally different things.
Yeah, they are.
I will agree with you that animal cruelty is an excellent example of something that is purely evil. You know, causing animals to suffer on purpose for the purpose of causing them to suffer is something that is purely evil.
Yeah.
If in fact all America needs to do is help poor countries to be moral, then we'd be amazingly moral right now because we give lots of money to poor countries, shit tons. But I guess that doesn't count, right? Tiny Man 66, none of those efforts count for some reason. Is vigilante TI? I mean, it depends. If the person is motivated by a personal kind of anger that you raped my sister, I'm going to get you, then it's not motivated by TI. If it's motivated by generalized kind of anger, I am continually outraged by people's willingness and ability to violate negative rights, then it's TI based.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Darren Kowalski. You know, for those who assume that altruism is a good thing, check out the essay called "The Gift." It's by a French guy, and it's from 1800 or something. But it really conveys that the paternalism expressed by Tiny Man 66 here is a form of ontological imperialism that she's committing against the poor. She's committing against whatever group name she wants to come up with for the poor or the poor countries or something. She's being incredibly presumptuous that she knows what's good for those people and can speak for them. Incredibly presumptuous that they need her voice and that her critique of someone else failing to take action comprises some sort of moral calculus. If in fact America should help poor countries and stuff, then Tiny Man 66, send all your money to poor countries. Go, you do it, instead of telling other people what they should do. Well, the thing is, men like God, totalizing any of those kind of dogmas is always bad, and that one too. It is not always the case that America should not make humanitarian interventions. It depends on the context a great deal. Some humanitarian interventions have been very successful, and some have resulted in the sort of thing you're talking about here. Creating dependencies, incentivizing ongoing poverty by rewarding it. So it's a matter of context. It is not the case that we should never, however, engage in any humanitarian interventions.
Soon we'll deal with my credit card thing.
Didn't I just send you the money?
No, like my
Oh, we gotta call the bank.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because they just called now. That's what I'm saying.
All right, cool. Of course, globalization is good. I mean, the idea of globalization implies that there's some agent taking some process towards globalization. Globalization and interconnectedness is what happens naturally when the information flow is freed up, as it has been by the internet. Why is what never the case, Raphael? Have you noticed FI users say, I like to think the blah, blah, blah? It sounds so weird to me, liking to think something. It sounds so off point.
That's a very good observation.
Yeah, I suspect what they're doing is simply qualifying their claims to make them more compatible to the other party, so less likely to incite a disagreement. After all, I don't actually think that. I just like to think that. Why is it never the case referring to humanitarian intervention? Well, because there are examples to the contrary. I mean, do you want me to present some examples to the contrary of humanitarian interventions that worked? I have to admit, I'm not really prepared to present that case. You kind of caught me there. Yeah, okay. You kind of caught me. I'm going to have to do a little bit of Googling. I stand caught. I stand caught bluffing, Raphael. You've caught me bluffing. However, the fact is I haven't looked at my cards. I'm quite sure I got pocket aces. Humanitarian interventions that have worked. Humanitarian intervention has been defined as a state's use of military force against another state, with publicly stating its goal is to end human rights violations in that state. This definition may be too narrow as it precludes non-military forms of intervention such as humanitarian aid and international sanctions. On this broader understanding, humanitarian intervention should be understood to encompass non-forcible methods, namely intervention undertaken without military force or with military force to alleviate mass human suffering within sovereign borders. There is a general consensus on some of the essential characteristics. 1. Humanitarian intervention involves the threat and use of military force as a central feature, or a backup feature, I guess. It is an intervention in the sense that it entails interfering with the internal affairs of a state by sending military forces into the territory. The intervention is in response to situations that do not necessarily pose direct state threats to the state's strategic interests, but instead is motivated by humanitarian objectives. So the appeal to humanitarian interventions has been used in reality to do just straight up conquest-minded interventions plenty of times in the past. So most of the time when in the past a nation has appealed to humanitarian intervention, they are lying. As was Russia when they appealed to humanitarian intervention when they annexed part of Ukraine. So some examples of military humanitarian intervention include the bombardment of Algiers in 1816 by Britain and the Netherlands to end the slavery practices of Omar Aga, the Day of Algiers. An Anglo-Dutch fleet under the command of Admiral Edward Pellew, first Viscount Exmouth, bombarded ships in the harbor defenses of Algiers. There was a continuing campaign by various European navies and the American Navy to suppress the piracy against Europeans by the North African Barbary states. The specific aim of this expedition, however, was to free Christian slaves and stop the practice of enslaving Europeans. To this end, it was partially successful, as the Day of Algiers freed around 3,000 slaves following the bombardment and signed a treaty against the slavery of Europeans. Okay, so there's an example. That was, I didn't know. See, I didn't realize this. Originally, both sides were enslaving each other. I didn't know this. Both sides were, did you know this? Originally, both sides were enslaving each other. The black people were enslaving the Europeans, and the Europeans were enslaving the black people. until, thanks to a wonderful humanitarian intervention by Britain and what was the other place? Netherlands? Yeah, the Netherlands. We've successfully eliminated all of the slavery that matters. See, now just the black people are slaves. It's fine. That'll be fine for a couple hundred more years. Then we'll have another humanitarian intervention to free them. In the meantime, the important thing is we've freed all the white people. That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. I had no idea. I had no idea that happened. Let's see, the Russian, British, and French anti-Ottoman intervention in the Greek War of Independence, 1824. What about that?
Never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, are you not thinking about that, Raphael? Come on.
Come on, yeah.
When the news of the Greek Revolution was first received, the reaction of the European powers was uniformly hostile. They recognized the degeneration of the Ottoman Empire, but they did not know how to handle the situation. Afraid of the complications the partition of the empire might raise, the British Foreign Minister Viscount Castlereagh, Austrian Foreign Minister Prince Metternich, and Tsar of Russia Alexander I shared the same view concerning the necessity of preserving the status quo and the peace of Europe. They also pleaded that they maintain the concert of Europe, which refers to a general consensus among the great powers of the 19th century to maintain the existing European balance of power and the integrity of territorial boundaries. In other words, let's not argue and bicker over whose border overlaps whose border.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it the way it is, and everyone, we're the ruling class. As long as we keep the peasants down, we're fine.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So let's see here. What happened? In 1822, George Canning was appointed by the British government as Foreign Secretary, succeeding Castlereagh. Canning was influenced by mounting popular agitation against the Ottomans and believed that a settlement can no longer be postponed. He also feared Russia might undertake unilateral action against the Ottoman Empire. In 1823, Canning declared, when a whole nation revolts against its conqueror, the nation cannot be considered as piratical, but as a nation in a state of war. In February 1823, he notified the Ottoman Empire that Britain would maintain friendly relations with the Turks only under the condition that the latter respected the Christian subjects of the empire. Let's see here. So, what happened in the end? Well, Frank Hastings destroyed a Turkish naval squadron during a raid off Itea. And then in 1827, British, Russian, and French fleets entered the Bay of Navarino in a peaceful formation to shelter themselves and to make sure the Egyptian-Turkish fleet did not slip off and attack Hydra. When a British frigate sent a boat to request the Egyptians to move their fire ships, the officer on board was shot by the Egyptians. The frigate responded with musket fire in retaliation, and an Egyptian ship fired a cannon shot at the French flagship, the Serene, which returned fire. A full engagement was begun, which ended in a complete victory for the Allies and in the annihilation of the Egyptian-Turkish fleet. Of the 89 Egyptian-Turkish ships that took part in the battle, only 14 made it back to Alexandria, and their dead amounted to over 8,000. The Allies did not lose a ship and suffered only 181 deaths. The Porte demanded compensation from the Allies for the ships, but his demand was refused on the grounds that the Turks had acted as the aggressors. The three countries' ambassadors also left Constantinople. In 1828, the Greeks regrouped and formed a new government in Capodistrias. Capodistrias took advantage of the Russo-Turkish War and sent troops to the reorganized Hellenic army to central Greece. They advanced to seize as much territory as possible, including Athens and Thebes, before Western powers imposed a ceasefire. These Greek victories would prove decisive for the including of more territories in the future state. So this is how Greece came to be, I guess. This is the invention of Greece as a modern country. As a modern country.
What?
It would,
So when was it a modern country? What year? 18.
In September 1828, the Conference of Poros opened to discuss what should be the borders of Greece. On the 21st of December 1828, the ambassadors of Britain, Russia, and France met on the island of Poros and prepared a protocol which provided for the creation of an autonomous state ruled by a monarch whose authority should be confirmed by a firman of the Sultan. The proposed borderline ran from Arto to Volos, and despite Capodistrius's efforts, the new state would include only the islands of Cyclades, the Sporades, Samos, and maybe Crete. Finally, they agreed to those terms, and by doing all this, they ended the massacres of civilians that were ongoing almost as soon as the revolution had begun. There were large-scale massacres of civilians by both Greek revolutionaries and Ottoman authorities. Greek revolutionaries massacred Jews, Muslims, and Christians suspected of Ottoman sympathies, mainly in the Peloponnese and Attica, where Greek forces were dominant. The Turks massacred Greeks identified with the revolution, especially in Anatolia, Crete, Constantinople, Cyprus, Macedonian, and the Aegean Islands. They also massacred unarmed Greeks in places which did not revolt, such as Smyrna and Constantinople. So what did this humanitarian intervention do? It put an end to those massacres. Raphael, I hope you're convinced. I hope you are convinced that the British, French, and anti-Ottoman intervention in the Greek War of Independence, which put an end to massacres of both Greek and Turkish civilians, is sufficiently convincing to you that humanitarian intervention sometimes works. Religion is just metaphysical tyranny masquerading as spirituality. Darren Kowalski, I like to say the following thing. It's really important to be spiritual some. Don't be spiritual all. That's too spiritual.
Yeah,
be spiritual some.
I'm a spiritual some person. Can I show you some oldie pics?
Sure. Now, if you could look up some examples of divine intervention. Times divine intervention has worked. Well, there was that one time that God sent that plague of locusts on the opposing army. That was totally successful. Would you like me to move this up here so you can sit down?
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go. And
I'm in my jammies.
You're in your jammies, and I'm in my pammies.
Hey guys. I have some, okay, so that's little me as Raggedy Ann. That's my Aunt Mildred and my great grandma Severino.
It's weird because, she came out of the womb with hair like that. And she had her hair looked like that until she was about 7, and then that kind of hair, it was kind of like her baby hair, fell out and was replaced by adult hair.
He's got it. This is my grandma La Pelosa, me, and my sister Kat.
You're the older one, right?
Yep, I'm the older one.
Rachel is the older one in this picture. The old lady in the chair. That's Rachel.
Then this one, that's my. Doesn't my dad look so much like my?
That's not you, is it?
Yeah, that is me.
You look like a doll.
Thank you.
No, I mean, you seriously look like a doll. Like a Cabbage Patch doll or something.
Aww,
Is that really you?
See, that's seriously me. It's the same person.
It doesn't even look like a human being. It looks like a fake doll.
Thank you. That's my grandma and grandpa La Pelosa. And then the last picture, which is really nice, is our first year in Franklin Square. I'm 1. Oh, no, 2. And my sister's 1. I've been looking for this photo, like everywhere.
You found it.
Yeah.
Cool. Eric, do you think that people with multiple personality disorder can demonstrate different cognitive function stacks through different personalities? No. I don't. Yes, that's how it's spelled, Sean Ryan Barron. Spiritusum. I'm extremely spiritusum.
Yeah, me too.
So obviously, as a companion product to host Eric's professional grade anal paste, we're gonna need the Talking with Fan People brand Gentle Scrub rectal brush.
Exfoliating?
Um,
Gentle rub is better.
gentle rub,
you
right?
really, because you really want to be gentle, so that region.
A deep and gentle clean with Talking with Famous People brand rectal brush and host Eric's professional grade anal paste. You too can stop treating your anus like a filthy mouth you never clean. Be careful your commitment to spiritualness doesn't turn into a spiritual belief system. Don't worry, I'm only spiritual some of the time.
I think Eric would be happy to know that, like, I don't know, I've sort of been like meh about like pick a card reading tarots. Like, I do have fun with it sometimes. Like, you know, I'll ask it like dumb stuff, like, you know, like, who's my hidden enemy? Like, I don't know, just for fun. It's fun. But like whenever it comes to like love stuff, like I have this like inner knowing of better than what they're saying, whatever it says.
Right. Well, because they're just talking to whomever happens to click it.
Right.
3DR Nomad, you've got a great idea, but that product is only really going to sell well once it's the preferable alternative to the normalized rectal brushing with anus paste approach, right? So once you normalize that you know, clean people brush their anus every day, using the reasoning that, hey, we all brush our teeth. Why? Because we know our mouth can get kind of dirty, but it's not the dirtiest place on our body. So if we want to be clean, we should brush that place as well, namely our butthole. Introducing Host Eric's professional grade anus paste and companion Gentle Scrub rectal brush.
That sounds so nice.
Now, after that's normalized, then 3DR Nomad, then we introduce the iPhone 2, which is the no scrub rectal foam, because then you're making a normalized behavior easier. If you just introduce the foam right off the bat, we're not exploiting the market for as much profit as we can. Okay,
That's right. Lips are made of the same material, so you got a point. You know,
right.
Got to be gentle with them, just like our lips.
I mean, of course, if you wanted to, I guess we could expand the Host Eric brand scrotal cream to be scrotal and anus. No, after scrub. We need an equivalent to aftershave for your anus.
Oh my gosh!
It's after scrub. It's a alcohol-based product that's got basically rubbing alcohol plus some smells in it, you know, and you splash it on your butthole after you after you brush it.
This sounds so cleansing.
Well, additionally, somebody else suggested anal deodorant. I'm gonna go anal antiperspirant instead. You know, you just gently rub a little bit like chapstick onto your butthole, and it prevents it from getting moist during the day.
That sounds nice.
I want to also give a hat nod here to whoever said the word secretion. I like that word. I'm going to include it in my dampness, dewdrops, tenderness, etc. Lexicon of terms. Anal rouge stick.
Ooh, anal rouge stick. That's a bonus.
And then, like in the commercial, they show a sassy young urban lady who's going about her business, doing things, handing papers to people, shaking hands, and then a guy comes over, and she, because you never know when you're gonna have to take it from behind. And then you sell our whole line of anal maintenance products.
I think we have a winner.
You can convince girls that anything about them is inadequate and sell them a product to fix
It's so true.
it. It's
How
like
anal bleaching came about.
anal bleaching is a real thing. You
Yeah.
can convince them that their eyebrows don't have enough brassiness.
It's so true.
Brassiness is bad in your head hair, but it's good in your eyebrow hair. You need more brassiness. So that's why I've introduced Eric's eyebrow brassiness enhancer. The cool thing about those kind of products, they don't actually have to do anything except just be basically made out of wax or something. Anything you rub that kind of
True.
stays on your eyebrow. You go, hey, it works beautifully. Look how much brassier my eyebrows are.
Well, in the fashion world, like I can recall a runway look that had like gold leaf eyebrows. So why not brassy eyebrows?
Mm-hmm. Eyebrow brassiness preservation balm is something we could sell. I've got so many business ideas. How am I ever going to open all these businesses? There's such a need right now in the marketplace for the full frontal shaming clinic. It's not being filled. You entertained people with femdom accounts, and I had no idea how many men were into pegging. It's wild. Pegging being the female using a dildo on the male, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm not into pegging. I am into, at least in theory, massaging my prostate. But in practice, it's an SI thing that I got to do like in the bathtub, and I just rarely do it. Because I think it's healthy to massage your prostate.
It is.
It helps.
Right.
It's like when I do it, then for a little while afterwards, I don't have to pee as frequently.
Yeah.
So, presumably guys who are into pegging would have fewer prostate problems.
Mm-hmm. In theory, yeah.
That's insufficient motivation for me. But
Thank you. We're on the same page with that too. I'm not really.
yeah, right. The thing is, I'm very kind of easily grossed out in general by SI stuff. Like stuff that generally sometimes like guys like to do, like, oh, I'm gonna spurt all over your face and stuff. I can't do that shit because then as soon as I'm done ejaculating, I go, whoop. Just thinking about it makes me want to puke. So gross. And I can make all these jokes about anal brushing and stuff like that. I don't know why that is the case. I'm not sure. I guess because the anal brush thing is just conceptually a joke, whereas the other thing is something I have some sort of experiential resonance with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Foot prostate massages half off all January. So do they massage your prostate with their foot? Or do they massage your foot with their prostate? Is that low? I think it's low SI. Well, I'd say ignoring SI would be most into it. SE DOMs. SE DOMs are probably most into getting girls to do gross stuff because they're not paying attention to SI. They're ignoring it.
And then wouldn't that make SI DOMs like good for them? I feel like I'm totally down for ESTP, ISFJ. I feel like an ISFJ would be like, of course I will. Like, I don't know. There's just like so many things that I get them together. I understand those two types being together.
I mean, it really depends on what you consider gross, I guess, too. I consider any kind of
so normal.
Any kind of unnecessary bodily fluids gross.
Yeah, and that's like a very nice thing. Like, you have no idea. I feel
We're both FE, so it's like I want to know that I'm freshly bathed before we even begin having sexual relations. Usually, because I mean sometimes I don't because I'm horny right then and I don't really want to take a bath or something.
but that's okay.
And that's okay. But generally speaking, I like us to both be freshly bathed.
Me too.
Yes, tears are the grossest of all bodily secretions. Tears are disgusting. I like the episode of South Park where Cartman gets revenge on this guy. Like this guy like tricks Cartman into buying a bag of pubic hairs, and then he gets revenge by killing the older kid's parents, and having him eaten by these animals. And then at the end, the older kid's crying, and he goes up and he licks the tears off his face. Oh, they're so sweet. That's such a hilarious episode of South Park.
That really is. So I can vividly picture that episode.
Yeah. I was thinking about another South Park episode last night too. What was I thinking about? I was recalling the Stan learns to ski episode where they have the montage when you need a montage.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite episodes too.
Speaking of skiing, my cousin Mandy went skiing today in like upstate New York, and she's like, "You should do it," but
the humans do probably. Neither of those things grossed me out though, because as I said, I think those are too far from my experience to really identify with. Skiing is a lot of fun. I would like to go skiing. Skiing's expensive though.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I don't like immediately. I would. I've never been skiing, so I'd have to be on the bunny hill, which I'm fine with, and I would take it slow because I know I'm TE pooler. So, like, I tend to like refer to my SE and just like want to go, but like I really need to take the like time to like learn. So I'm gonna be very patient with myself. Is basically what I'm saying.
Sean, any cool motorcycle stories? I don't know if they're cool. All motorcycle stories involve either crashing or almost crashing. Okay, I have a few almost crashing stories, but I never actually got into a motorcycle accident. I rode motorcycles for 2 stretches of my life. The first motorcycle I had was a 1981 Honda CB750. That was a sweet little bike. I loved that motorcycle. It was so cool. It's like the coolest bike you could get, in my opinion. It was like exactly the bike I wanted, and it was nifty too. It's a small 750, so you can, pretty effectively. And I ended up. My second wife made me sell it at some point because we were short on cash, and she didn't like me having a motorcycle anyway. And that was one of my sadder moments, is watching that motorcycle go away. As far as space objects go,
I'm sorry.
As far as space objects go, means it's way low down on the things that matter. But regardless,
I hear you.
My second bike. Sorry, Rachel. Let me just finish this real quick. My second bike was a commuter bike, a big 1150. That had, instead of pegs, it had floorboards. You put your feet on. And that bike, I almost crashed one time shortly after I bought it, or 1100. I'm sorry. Did I say 1150? It's an 1100. Yeah, it was. It wasn't that. It was called a Kawasaki Vulcan, but it was like sort of in the same class of motorcycle as a Goldwing. Yeah. And Oh, okay. That's a tourer, not a commuter. Fine. I thought of it as a commuter bike because it was more comfortable to ride to work than the 16. I don't know. It was bigger than my 750. I know that. It was over 1,000. I don't remember exactly what the CCs were, but the thing is, the first time early on when I was riding it, like not the first time maybe, but like the second time I rode it to work and back home, there's this transition from the freeway from the 2 to the 134 that turns like this. And I was not yet accustomed to this bike. I took the turn too fast, and it wasn't at all like my 750. It wasn't easy to, it was like, I'm not turning enough. And I ended up going onto the side thing and barely successfully stopping before I crashed into the hill that was right there.
Ooh.
So that was the sketchiest moment on that bike. The sketchiest moment on my 750 was one time when I was drunk and I almost killed myself. But that's a sad story that I don't like to think about those things. Makes me.
Well, I'm glad that I'm in your life when you don't have a bike. I wouldn't probably. I mean, like if we have like a moped thing, I would go on with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm
not a bike person. I get scared very easily.
I don't think that. I don't think I would. I don't want to really. It's like I would like to have a couple of, like she said, like a couple of scooters or mopeds or something.
Oh,
But,
that's cool.
Gotta get around a little bit.
So, yeah, because as long as you're just going on surface streets or locally, then it feels fine to me. But I even back when I was younger, I always felt like going on the freeways in Los Angeles on a motorcycle was sketchy. The speed of traffic around here is insanely fast.
Yeah, it is.
When there's not traffic,
Mm-hmm.
and when there is traffic, everyone drives really aggressively.
Yeah.
There's always, or not at all. One of the two.
Yeah.
It's like.
It's so true. It's so true. It's unavoidable.
You can never relax driving in LA. You can never relax. It's like there's constantly somebody trying to like come up on your ass, so you either have to get over to the right or you're coming up on someone else's ass, or it's just like and everybody either is being purposely driving, which means kind of aggressive, or purposely driving, purposelessly driving, in which case they're making everybody who's purposefully driving have to drive more purposefully.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel lucky to have gotten out of my motorcycle riding days without crashing. And I did drop my bike on a few occasions. That's just being dumb, like forgetting to put down the kickstand and leaning and just, oh shit! Especially the Vulcan. It was so heavy. If it starts falling over, I couldn't stop it from falling over.
Oh, I'm glad that makes you relate to that. At least I had like that. I had that experience with my bike.
What is ontological violence, and what measures should I take to avoid it? Ontological violence can be best described as telling people there's something wrong with them. Now, the thing is, there should be some matter of solicitation in here as well, which is to say whether or not you are. First of all, ontological violence is not the best term because it uses violence as a metaphor, which I don't like. I would say ontological assault is a better term. It's still metaphorical, but it's more correct. It's anytime I tell you that the way you are, there's something wrong with the way you are, rather than what you do or say. Critiques about what you do or say are fine. Critiques about who you are not. You might claim that I'm doing ontological assault when I talk shit about ESFPs, and that would probably be correct. However, the difference is it really boils down to whether or not the thing you're talking about is something that's normative. So I try to make clear that the anti-intellectualism of ESFPs is not normatively worse. In other words, my way is not better and their way is not worse inherently. I try to always stress that their way, which they naturally are, is not conducive to this environment, to being successful on the metrics that we use here to evaluate things anyway. But in general, in this environment, because it's such a meaning-based environment and they naturally are very experientially based. Now, this is observationally true. It makes good sense. It's consistent with our mapping. But part of the concept of ontological assault is that we don't try to map other people's ontologies for them in general. And when I'm telling you who you are and insisting you be that person, then I'm engaged in some sort of ontological assault. The thing is, of course, you also have to remember how the engagement happens. So how does the engagement, when I end up ontologically assaulting an ESFP, how does that happen? Well, I didn't probably go find a random person and say, you're an ESFP and this is what's wrong with you. Probably they've done something an ESFP is likely to do. They've mistaken their preferred frame of reference for a normative advantage, namely that their frame of reference is better, preferable, So they come over here and try to they come over here pretending to do something legitimate, critiquing my ideas or behaviors, but are actually doing something illegitimate, critiquing my identity, because they're not capable of engaging intellectually with my ideas, and my behaviors are blameless. This is not word salad, Katie. There is such a thing as word salad. And I hate word salad more than anything else, because word salad is that which imitates what I do. The more successfully it imitates it, the more people it fools. However, also, the more successfully it imitates it, the more likely people are to mistake what I'm doing as an example of that bullshit. I'm not doing anything of the sort. But those who do that devote a lot of energy into imitating as convincingly as possible the actual intellectualism of the sort that I do. So, it's easy to see how people will use that accusation of me, No, I didn't say it was justified. I'm saying that that one's moral duties may be informed by the context. Is there a meta-sex as well? No, because sex requires an experiential component. In other words, you have to actually physically agitate your genitals. It doesn't require that, but meta-sex would be dream sex in a dream. That would be the representational form of sex without any actual physical reality of it. You can't really, for males anyway, if you dream a sex dream, it can make you ejaculate. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, maybe it's different for other guys, but I think it's not really possible for a man to, without physically agitating his genitals at all, to just sit there and with his imagination make himself ejaculate. Even though it's clearly possible because you can do it in a dream, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think anybody can do that really. Is any guy in the chat here? Can they do that? Can they just sit there, hands up in the air, and imagine themselves to ejaculation? I don't think so.
I don't know. It's giving me visuals, though.
It's making me feel pukey.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, wait, are you grossed out by this stuff?
David Sanderson, you win the point. TI is not necessary to be smart. Depends what you mean by smart, right? Like, my dad's smart, and he also says some of the dumbest things in the world. Sean, ENFJ, 8 Wing 7, SXXO O'Neill. My response to David Sanderson was not to be taken at face value. I don't think his statement was meant to be taken at face value either.
Oh my gosh.
The point is, it's full of crazy stuff because he says you're in Mensa, which I don't think you are you? And it assumes that being in Mensa means you're smart, and that's a silly idea. And Sean, TMI. Way TMI.
I knew that was coming though. I was like,
I don't want
you're
to.
talking to the.
If you retain semen for 5 years, you can give people orgasms with eye contact. That's good to know.
Oh my gosh. So wait, like you send your like horny vibes through the air tell through eye contact. I love that. Oh my gosh. I like
Sounds like an anime power.
it does. There's some astrologers who like legit like tell women like, oh, you know, you should only like tell them how to use their body so that they could be like more attractive. It's weird.
Chuopu says using a torch to light a cigarette seems a little overkill. I tell you what seems like overkill, Chuopu. Getting up to find a lighter. That just seems like overkill. When my torch is right here.
Yeah, he's.
You know?
Yeah, I'm always looking for my lighter. I try to keep it close to my bong.
That is ultimately the story of this torch and why I always have a torch and use a torch.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only lighter I can't put in my pocket and walk away with.
Yes, it's true. He said that before.
It's the only lighter I can always find. And sometimes I can't even find it. You know, it's like, sometimes I leave it over there by the sink. I'm like, where's my torch? Where's Warchy Porch? I call it Warchy Porch. It's its nickname. It's a good friend. This torch has been in my family for a long time now.
How many years? How long?
4 years? maybe?
Wow, that's a long time to have a torch.
For this to last you?
Wow.
Why would you want to infiltrate Mensa? Why would I want to perform well on Mensa tests? What would that do for me? No, I have much better bragging rights. I get to brag that I scored 107 on an IQ test. That's way better. You're in Mensa? Oh, I scored 107 on my IQ test. You must really feel like you're underperforming. You know, right? Why not be smart about IQ tests and IQ results? It's better to score low. That way, if I don't perform, I'm not underperforming.
Exactly.
And if I do perform and you're smarter than me, you're way underperforming. Right?
That's my man.
That's called being smart instead of having a high IQ.
Smarter, not harder.
In other words, being really smart means taking advantage of other people's stupidity about IQ tests and other stupid, pointless things like Mensa.
Do you have to like, does Mensa have hazing? Do you have to do hazing stuff for Mensa?
We are in competition with each other. Mensa is an exclusive society that explicitly excludes all people who aren't smart enough. How can you possibly say that's not some sort of zero-sum competition? I mean, it's absolutely competitive. It's saying you have to score this well on this competitive endeavor in order to enter this group.
Do you have to pay dues?
Well, the point is, Raphael, that you'd rather be smart underperforming than dumb performing as good as I can. I mean, my point is, I'd rather be smart enough to understand that IQ tests are fucking nonsense and take advantage of other people's stupidity regarding thinking they matter. That's what I'm doing. I'm not believing that myself is defined by this score at all. You are, and I'm taking advantage of that stupidity. That's the difference. Yes, it is what I argued. I'm arguing on FE grounds, Raphael. I'm saying in managing the FE matters, I'd much rather claim to be average. That's an easy claim to substantiate. It's an easy claim to go well beyond the scope of. And it doesn't set expectations of other people for me to perform well. I said I'd rather not be underperforming and be smart. No, I said I'd rather be perceived as dumb than I'd rather be incorrectly perceived as dumb because of a stupid metric like an IQ score than incorrectly be perceived as smart by a stupid metric like an IQ score, which can't correctly perceive anybody at all. So in other words, there's no way it's inherently normative, right? IQ is inherently normative. So because it's inherently normative and it's inherently relative, that is, it's absolutely relative rather than relatively absolute, then it just means people who pay attention to that are using the wrong frame of reference, and I can take advantage of that. And that's the natural consequence of them being wrong for them. It's just how it is. Yes, David Sanderson is exactly right. It's inherently normative. If you score low on an IQ test, that makes you less important in some regard than someone who has a high IQ test score. So I'd rather have that low score because people who put any weight in IQ scores are opening themselves up to having their wrongness bite them in the ass. Society isn't built on that. Society is built on rich people sucking human life force. Which one is sucking your life force right now? Is it Trump? No. Is it Bill Gates? Is he sucking your life force? Which rich person is currently
that's a good
sucking
question.
your life force? I want to know. I mean, have you experienced this phenomenon yourself of having your life force sucked out by rich people? Or are you just assuming it happens to other people? Society is built on sucking. It's not sucking life force, though. I think we know what it is. It's sucking at basketball. Life is built on sucking at basketball. Society is built around that. People who suck at basketball make the world go round.
I suck at basketball.
I suck at basketball, too. Your local rich person is sucking your life force out. whichever person close to you is rich, there's the rich dude coming along and he sucks out my life with his richness. He's got his top hat, he's got his monocle, he's got his bag full of coins that has a dollar sign on it,
And the mustache.
and he walks past me and I go, or I'll get anime all complaining like a withered mummy. Would you agree that EP types are really scared of people predicting their next move? No. I would say that I like to be surprising about what I say or making jokes and stuff like that. I don't like to be accusable of being predictable. I don't like to be accusable. I don't like to be boxable. So I have one of the reasons, not really a reason, but one of the advantages of having so many songs uploaded is that anytime somebody goes, "Oh, you sound like meow. You're just a derivative of meow," I say, "Okay, well, what about all of these songs?"
That
You know, it's an FE defense.
out.
So, in that regard, I'm not scared of people predicting my next move, but I do very strongly dislike the concept that somebody can box me successfully as derivative. I want to be original. I want people to say, "I've never met anybody like you, Eric," or "I've never heard anything like that before," or whatever. So in that regard, it's more like a positive outcome I want to attain than a fear. I don't fear being predictable in the sense that I also expect myself to be TI consistent. So when I'm answering questions about cognitive functions, I have to know what I'm talking about, or else I'll contradict things I've said before. And the reason I don't do that is because I actually do know what I'm talking about, and I'm prioritizing in that instance not being surprising, but being correct.
Steve Stevenson, I'm not sure if it's biased towards NI because I test horribly on standardized tests.
He's saying NITE. I think he's saying IQ tests are biased towards NTJs and STJs and away from more NTJs. Biased in favor of NTJs. Especially the Mensa test I took, David Sanderson, was an extremely NTJ test. It was all spatial patterns and visual patterns. So, and that is literally the worst area of intelligence for me. I can't figure out how to turn something to fit it through a doorway. If there's a piece of furniture and I got to fit through the doorway, I had this experience with Candace, my second wife, on a few occasions where she's always buying furniture, buying and selling furniture, or buying and throwing away furniture. Like, our little house was so full of wonderful, quaint, vintage pieces of furniture, So I was always having to try to figure out how to carry something in to the house. And there were a couple of occasions where I put it down and said, "Candace, you bought something that cannot go into the house. It is not possible. It does not fit through any of the door, no matter what you do." She goes, "Just turn it like this, Sally." Fuck you. Fuck you. How is that? How is that I can't do that? Why is it that I cannot figure out how to turn something to fit it through a doorway? Well, the same reason I score 107 on the IQ test. I'm just not very smart at that.
Not that stuff.
I'm just not smart about that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
dumb about that.
Me too.
Being intuitive stupid comes naturally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Being intuitive stupid comes naturally to me too.
Same. When do you get a Coca-Cola you want or something from the fridge?
I would love one. Thank you. No, I agree that there are intellectual differences between people of the same type. And that IQ is one way of measuring the intellectual differences between two people of the same type. However, that's not how IQ tests are used. In other words, you're not compared against others of your same type. You're compared against others of any type. And the other thing is, like, you could compare some other ENTP to me, against me, or whatever. Let's say John Stewart, who I'm pretty sure is an ENTP. You might say, well, Eric, you are smarter than him, you are dumber than him, you're less successful than him. You might even try to argue I'm more successful than him, although that would be a fool's errand. But you could argue those various things. Now, the real question, though, that people seem to forget is what matters most of all is why you are arguing what you're arguing. And that's what TE frame people tend to forget about, is they forget that they are a factor in this equation too. If you don't know why you are arguing what you are arguing, or you don't have a clear understanding of why that is and how that validates across multiple metrics, then you're going to keep making the same kind of mistakes in dealing with me. You're going to think that you're doing what I'm doing. You're doing analysis to determine what's correct. But if you haven't actually evaluated why you are making the specific arguments you're making, in other words, what that represents to you in terms of your own frame of reference, your own biases, and your own preferences, and your own manners of attaining something like objectivity and or subjectivity accordingly, if you haven't done the self-meta-analysis, then you're not really ready to engage me intellectually with other things, because my engagement of the ideas includes the illocutionary plane, namely my own whys. And it's important to do that if you're going to be honest. Ultimately, you're going to be able to be honest. If you aren't aware of your own whys, you're not really able to be honest in engaging with me. Well, because your logic to be complete needs to include the illocutionary plane as well. Otherwise, it's an incomplete set of analysis, and the part that's not included in the analysis is critical to the understanding. So it's like, well, why do I need to bake the cake? I've put all the ingredients in correctly. Well, because baking is also necessary. So in other words, Raphael, you and I will never really truly understand each other until you understand yourself better. Like, you don't know why you come in with the critiques you come in with. You don't know what it means that you do that. You don't have a frame of reference that explains that to yourself, nor do you think it's important that you have one at the moment. One of the things that I would like to do is to see if it's possible for you to met up in that regard and address your own frame of reference as, okay, so that's what I'm saying. Since you're not interested in that, then it's not really possible for you to have a truly honest conversation with me, because you're including in your analysis stuff about my illocutionary plane, my motivations, my secret reasons for things, stuff that I'm not saying explicitly, right? But you're saying that your own illocutionary plane, stuff that you're not saying explicitly, is something that neither you nor I need to know anything about to successfully analyze the situation.
Well, I feel like the topic on itself of the size of male genitals has been talked about, but butthole size hasn't.
Right. Because if you want to really please a woman, what you need is not located in front, it's in back. You need a really supple and clean anus. That's the only way to make sure you just knock a woman's socks off.
Very easy.
I mean, the inside of you isn't secret to you. It's just secret to other people, right? You can choose not to look at it, but that doesn't make it secret. I mean, look, I'm a big believer that if you're going to make expectations of an individual, it should be because of some engagement with that individual. and it should not be placed upon them because of something you think you know about them before you actually engage with them personally. As an SI user, an NI ignorer, it's especially easy for me not to treat you as an example of a group. I ignore NI. I ignore what group you're a member of. I just base my relationship with you on my experience of how I interact with you. So if you come in and you are to be typed, I have no idea what you look like or anything before I meet you on the video thing for the first time. When I see you, my eyes see stuff, whatever they see. Like maybe you are dark colored and appear to be female and have an accent from some foreign country. But the only thing I think is, I wonder if my language tests are going to be negatively impacted by the non-native speakerhood of this person. That's all I think. I don't think I know anything about the person until I've actually talked to them.
Yeah. You're always like that.
Because it's the truth. I don't know anything about the person until I've actually talked to them. It doesn't matter if I know they are a woman or I know they are meow, 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 meow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about a person until I actually talk to them.
Yep. It's the same with everyone.
Yeah. Your butt is the prison. How many tenants per cell is a good question. It's an 8-man cell.
I have to say, like, that's why, I don't know.
Other self, you need to have, you are hereby granted membership in Anal Wreckage Anonymous. If you have an 8-man cell in your butt, then right. So, the thing is, I like stuff that gives you static statuses that don't confine you to static identities. So it's like if I say you're an INFJ, it's a static status that's never going to change, but it doesn't require you to manifest any particular identity at all, or nor does it mean I can reasonably expect anything of you. It means if I'm trying to predict how you're going to respond to something, and I understand cognitive functions, I may be more successful in those predictions. But that's a particularist concern. That's not a universalist concern.
Okay, so, like, I've been thinking this internally for, like, a while now, since we got the red vines. I'm totally a red vine fan over Twizzler. Like, just gonna put that out there. I've had both now, and red vines are delicious.
Twizzlers are softer than red vines and taste more like strawberry.
Yeah, they're different. They're very different.
Yeah. I like the big jug of red vines we got there. That package of them that lasts a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I frequently do that. I frequently do what Rachel's doing right now.
Me too.
Okay, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. It's been 2 hours of streaming, and I would like to probably try to. I don't know what I want to do right now.
That's good.
But I guess I'm done live streaming. I agree with Utter Self. We just need to have a big government program that moves millions of homeless Americans into Utter Self's butt.
How nice.
That's a better plan than Homeless Town.
That's a better plan than world peace.
I'm going to tell my cat that in future kitty pageants, she should give that answer to the question.
Yeah. Move all the homeless into...
If I had one wish, it would be to relocate all the words homeless into Utter Self's ass. It's a great plan. He does have a huge ass. I don't know if you're a TE Dom. Well, If you're TESI, you frequently say to other people, "You're not taking good enough care of your property." And if you're TENI, you frequently think to yourself, "God, this person is inadequately functioning as a cog in my machine." That's how you know you're a TE Dom. If you think either of those two things frequently. If you tell other people frequently, "You're not taking good enough care of your property," you're probably an ESTJ. And if you think to yourself frequently in your head, "God, I wish people would just function more like cogs in my machine," then you're almost certainly an ENTJ. I've defined their purpose for them very clearly. I've given them a clear set of ordinals. Why can't they just be like a machine? I don't understand. What? You need a break. What is this? Introverted sensing? That's not allowed around here. That's just your feelings. Okay? That's just your emotions. Saying you're tired and hungry and have to go to the bathroom. That's just your emotions running wild. That's TENI. You really need to come up with a better name than Homeless Town. Some people are going to hear that and lose their mind. Well, ISFJ Mortgage, you are correct. Your FE analysis here is spot on the money.
Yeah.
Homeless Town is not a good name for homeless.
It's not.
It is not a good way to sell my policy. Okay?
No.
But however, it is an accurate name. It is it makes clear what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a tough choice as to whether I want to be clear with my name or appealing. How about Services Oasis?
Oh, I like that. That's very retreat sounding.
Or the Reboot Oasis.
Ooh.
A chance for homeless people to come in and reboot their lives.
A reboot away.
We'll use terms like life hacks. That'll make it more appealing to people.
Very
Just turn me right
Internet
round,
savvy.
baby. Right round like a record, baby. Right round. The Homeful Town. The place where there are no... Homeful Town is a good name,
Homeful
too.
Town.
Or Home More Town.
Homemore.
So, guys, you guys know about my, Rachel and I, we want to put on, we want to make a movie. We have a film idea. And it's basically, the film idea is, it's Sister Act, but with homeless people and dancing.
So good.
And what happens is that an NFP graduates from college with her degree and her double degree. She's got a double degree in sociology and interpretive dance. And for sure, Sean Ryan Barron, the Homeful Town will have a lot of marketing of anal wellness products.
Sean Ryan Barron, I was wondering if you were still here. Do you want to do the Enneagram thing that I was saying? Would you mind?
Do you want to chat with Sean Ryan Barron? Do you want to come
He
to?
wants to know his Enneagram.
Why don't you come talk to us and
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
let's chat for a little bit and
Yeah.
come to whereby.com/Eric Strauss. I'm gonna end this stream right now and I'll see
Come see us
you
there
in a
and
little
do
bit and
Enneagram
we'll chat
stuff.
for a bit. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.